Hello and welcome. So, I want to talk about kindness. We have all been unkind and not particularly thoughtful at one time or another with the words that we say, the opinions that we share, and none of us are exempt. We've all faltered, we've all had our missteps, and we may continue to have them in the future because we're not infallible. And not to get too much into my own beliefs as a practicing Buddhist, but we all suffer. And because of that, our suffering may motivate us to want to step outside of our own suffering. And it doesn't really matter so much how we choose to define that suffering or from where it originated. Because for each and every one of us in our path, we have unique stories that would explain that. So I've really thought a lot about the way that we communicate through this medium in particular, and how that has had an influence on me, positive and negative. And I see what the impact can make if we're not mindful of what we might choose to say in passing. And people can hurt. I've done it. Many other people in the fragrance community have done it. In fact, there are some who nearly make a career out of it, but may they be free from suffering. May we all be free from suffering. May those people be happy. May we all be happy. So in recent days, I have noticed that some people have shared things where they may have been hurt by an opinion. And I've also seen instances where opinions have been shared that may have hurt others. And I think we could all stand to reflect a little bit on what the purpose is when we do live streams, when we connect through this medium. And what our intention is. Like, what is our intention? Because I see that intention clearly deviates from fragrance after a while. So what does it become then? What is the purpose? And I think, a lot of it is, the purpose is to feel a sense of connectedness. And connectedness has been very important, especially in the past 3 years or so. In fact, I think that the burgeoning of this live stream subculture, and let's face it, it's a very small cross-section of the fragrance community at large. I assure you of that. It doesn't represent the fragrance community at large by any means. But some have sought the sense of community, the sense of friendship through this medium. But I would caution any of us from investing that much into it on that level. And Yeah, it can be fatiguing. It can be exhausting. And I've made it a point since I've started doing my own live streams to really keep the focus. Keep the focus on what we love, have rich conversations surrounding it, listen to others' ideas, share ideas. And so far it works. So who's really doing something wrong then by deviating from it? Far be it from me to tell others what to do with the way they choose to create content. And I think I was pretty spicy last week, but it's my sense of humor. I think it's important not to only poke fun at it, maybe poke fun a little bit at each other, but I can also poke fun at myself. Because last year, when I was new to doing live streams, I said some pretty stupid stuff that doesn't really represent who I am. And then I find that the people that I say stupid stuff about have said stupid stuff about other people. And I think when we're caught in the moment, caught in the energy, sort of this zeitgeist of live stream culture, there is a tendency to do that. And I think that getting that kind of attention, getting that spotlight, having your ego be the driver, and I say this firsthand, experiencing this myself, that you have a tendency to say things that you might regret. But like I said, none of us are exempt from that. There have been people who, in the arc of our story being on social media, have gone from being very enthusiastic, a bit naive, to gaining more knowledge, gaining more attention, growing a fan base, growing followers, becoming a little bit more aware of that to the point where ego gets in the way. Then there can be cynicism, and so on and so forth. And then we might want to grab the brass ring, if you will, like we were on a merry-go-round, and really go for it and get as much attention as we want, get as much of a following as we want, and do certain things to help facilitate that. And I think the rest, we all know what that story can be. And so I just wanted to preface this evening's impromptu live stream, not planned. I planned this literally an hour or a little over an hour ago, to apologize to anyone who may have been offended by some sort of backhanded comment that I made in the past year. And I would like to think that others who make those backhanded comments that could potentially hurt others can have the insight to apologize if they've hurt others. And for those who don't have that insight, or they don't have that self-awareness, remember, as I said earlier, it could stem from a number of things: trauma, grief, fear, and their protection, maybe to troll people or to bully people or to see if they can get a rise out of them. Don't take the bait. Don't take the bait. Don't acknowledge it. Take the high road. Because if you respond and react, if you show that you're letting it get to the core of who you are, you're giving them the fuel. You're giving them what they want. And all you really need to do is just not acknowledge it. Stop acknowledging it. Stop giving it the attention, the oxygen that it does not deserve. Okay? That's to any and all of you out there. And for those of you who continue to do it, it's not worth it. And I don't want to be part of that conversation. All right? I just don't. I've had enough of it. I have other things in mind when doing content creation than worrying about who said what about who, what kind of scandal, who's been doxxed. It's like, it's not important to me. I see my energy as precious because I have a partner who lives with cancer. I have a full-time job that takes a lot of energy out of me. I only wish that I could do live streams and videos every day, hours, communicating with you about my love for fragrance. I don't have that luxury. And I don't, maybe at times I feel jealous that I don't have that luxury, but I don't. But we all have to look at the bandwidth that we have so that we can be the best person that we are. And if we use that energy, if we squander that energy on all of this stuff that, I mean, you might as well just watch TV or YouTube or something and, you know, reality TV or something. I mean, it's the same idea, you know, it can be entertaining. It can be funny. You can get kind of caught up in it. It's a time waster. But that's really all it is. Like, if you start to invest yourself to the point where Have I been muted the entire time? Everybody's sitting here, and I have lost sound, no sound, enough preaching. Hey, you can always sign off, man. That's okay. If this is not for you, I mean, hey, look, and that does sting. See, it always does. I mean, it can sting. That kind of stings. Maybe this isn't the right stream for you. I'll be talking about fragrance at some point. I think that I have a mic issue though, so I apologize. Yeah, that's not cool, man. Like if you don't like it, just turn it off. Bye. Oh, brother. I don't know what that means. I really don't. I mean, some like it. Some do. So I'm just backtracking here. We all say stupid stuff sometimes when we're in their moment. Yeah, I think that there is some responsibility for that, though. We have to be accountable for what we say, all of us. So. Mm. I think this is a perfect opportunity to weed out the people who probably are not really meant to watch my content. Because I don't know anything to those people. I really don't. I know that I've had a very successful series with Effluvium, some great guests, and it's been wonderful. All right, we'll get started. And it is what it is. All right, I'm going to start with Violette Volynka here. I don't know, it's exactly what I'm talking about. I'm a pretty emotional person. I have some sensitivities. That's fine. But ooh. I definitely feel with Violette Volynka Hermes that I'm getting a much more refined Fahrenheit vibes already, without the petrol, or at least more of an understated kind of petrol. But it's much more of a violet than a violet leaf, like the violet flower. I don't know who you are, but you can go fuck yourself. Thank you very much. Oh, you're fine. I think I could tell. I could tell with you, Speed Wolf. No worries. Thank you very much. This is beautiful, but I feel like Violette Volynka is just sort of a progression from Cuillage, which was Jean-Claude Ellena. And it's just sort of embellished with a violet accord. It's beautiful. It's really beautiful. But this is not one that I would seek out any more than just this sample. I love Violet. I'm actually going to do a video as part of my Spring Floral series on Violet in the next few weeks. But yeah, this is not something I would ever expect somebody to spend a few $100s on by any means. Maybe if you can get a sample, you can get a sample like this, and you like it enough, try to find one of those 15 milliliters for an affordable price. Yeah, it's beautiful stuff, but this would definitely be redundant in my collection for sure. It does have that very modern leather as well, which I'm sort of ambivalent towards. I think there's been sort of overkill with it. I think leather has been done a lot better by Christine Nagel through Galop d'Hermes. Yeah, Galop d'Hermes. That was the only one where I think that she did a really great leather accord on it. Oh, nice. Gasoline and grass. Very nice. Hello there. Nuit Toilette is beautiful. Isabelle Doyen I find to be really underrated as a perfumer. Her creations have a certain refinement and repose to them that I think is lost on certain people who expect something less nuanced and more profound and bold. Quiet perfumes are also beautiful perfumes. Like, not all perfumes need to be really loud. That's just not the way I've ever looked at it. Ever, really. The ones that tell stories often could not tell the story the same way if they were powerhouses. There's a certain sense in nature that we're never meant to be powerhouses, so if we were to translate them into a perfume as a powerhouse, a lot would be lost along with that. Do you see what I mean? Just give me 1 second here. I really don't want to give my opinion on a Meleg. So you can read between the lines on that. Yeah, five out of 5. Yeah, I agree. Okay, so I'm done with the Violette Volynka. And my verdict is it's beautifully rendered. The violet to me is reminiscent of more like a floral lavender than not a lavender violet. What is wrong with me? A floral violet than say like a candied Parma violet. There is this more suederol kind of leather. It's not particularly smoky. It's well done and it's good quality, but it's not doing anything new. It isn't going to set the world on fire at all. But one could say that about a number of Hermes essences, even though I am a fan of a number of them. All right. Next is Celine Nightclubbing. I guess this will be the second one I'll actually apply on skin. The rest I'll just do on paper here. And this Celine Paris exclusive line has gotten much attention, and much has been said about it. Very pricey, not terribly accessible. I'm very fortunate that a friend was able to give me this sample. And Nightclubbing seems to be the one that has been most, there's been most chatter over. I feel like this is, it is reminiscent of ashtrays. Ashtrays and leather, and just like the ambience of different fragrances being worn in the same space, if that makes sense. Like there isn't really a legibility to what is going on here, at least in the top notes. Thanks, man. No, as I said, for those who were to complain about how I choose or what I choose to say on my live stream, maybe this just isn't the right content for you. You can unsubscribe. It's fine. You can stop watching. You can, like, it's not the end of the world. But like, it's kind of funny that it kind of goes in line with what I was discussing in the first place. There's something to be said for being mindful for your words and being tactful. And I think everybody has a right to have an opinion. And everybody has a right to share the opinion, but it doesn't necessarily make it kind. If kindness is overrated, then we have a certain problem on our hands. Hi, Micah. Oh, that's a very good one. Is that a Quentin Biche, Herman? If I'm not mistaken. This is very smoky, very ashy. This one is elusive. Wow, it is. It's very convincing ashiness. Nightclubbing, indeed. I have a Lou Reed song in my head. I'll have to revisit that. Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about it. It's fascinating though. Put that one aside. All right, next. Parfums de Nicolai Odalisque. Parfums de Nicolai, Surrender to Chance. Okay, just one moment. All right. Just turning something off on the old phone here. This is a very saturated chypre. And I already pick up a lot of bergamot. And there's almost like it's almost like a sour floral quality to it. A lot of jasmine. Like an indolic, somewhat indolic, but also this plangent sort of white floral feel. I'm feeling like it's quite reminiscent to Mitsuko. Big surprise. There are some sort of like peachy lactones. But I wouldn't say that this is extremely heady. This is a nice one. I actually think this might be the nicest, so far, at least in the top notes, the nicest Patricia Nicolai I've smelled. That's a good one so far. Is it blowing my mind? No, but it's a good one. It's not blowing my mind, though. That's what I thought. Thank you. Oh, that's a very good question. Labrador tea. They actually do make an essential oil of Labrador tea. I used to have some of it. But that's a good question. I honestly would not know of any. Perhaps some natural perfume might use Labrador tea. I don't know if too many commercial perfumes have used it as a note. Hey there, Alex. Good to see you. All right, next. Is Serge Lutens de Profundis. Is anybody out there already familiar with de Profundis? Very little bit here, just enough. I'm gonna try to get it away from the night clubbing now. Now this is beautiful. So de Profundis, if you know the story, it's supposed to be more of a melancholy, more of a elegiac, I guess you could say, elegiac, funereal kind of scent, reminiscent of flowers in a cemetery. Ooh. There is a realism to it. I'm smelling the soil, I'm smelling the grass, and I'm also smelling something that There's a little bit of like that smell of a florist though. Like the smell of the flowers and like the refrigerated room of a florist. And it's very cool. It's like a cool, also it kind of reminds me of like a cool rainy day this time of year, springtime. Oh, such a tiny amount. I need more of this. But I'm glad that my friend could send me whatever she did have left. There's violet. From what I recall, there's a chrysanthemum note. It could be the power of suggestion, but I can see that. I can smell that. As to whether or not chrysanthemum absolute was used, I haven't examined the chrysanthemum absolute that I had in a long time. Yeah, but it does kind of remind me of chrysanthemum now. And this is very beautiful stuff. It's very introspective, though. This is my favorite so far. Okay. All right, I'm running out of places to put stuff, so these are sprays. I'm going to use some strips. Yeah, I would say it is. It is a contemplative scent. There's like a, almost sort of like a clay-like quality too. Yeah, that is really beautiful. I knew it would end up seeming beautiful to me. I was a little worried about that. Resist the temptation to buy a lot of. All right, this next one actually is Eris Parfums Belle de Jour Eau de Parfum. I'm going to do this on a scent strip. This is quite punchy. Quite the opposite of De Profundis. There's something that reminds me a little bit of dill. Like dill. Not pickles. Not this whole pickle business that people say, but just dill, like the herb. Like not dill with vinegar, not dill in a brine with pickles, but the dill weed. Your dill weed. And one of your dill weeds unsubscribed. Good riddance. I'm just not the right content for everyone, so some people better get used to it. Yeah, there's a greenness to this. Very yellow green, very, like I said, very punchy. The citruses are, you can't really pinpoint what citruses are in these top notes. That funny that you mentioned that, Keith. I'm not getting like a prostitute vibe from this, though. I'm getting like a spring maiden. A spring maiden who grows herbs for the kitchen. I'm not picking up the florals yet, but that could just be because it's on the scent strip. I get a lot of dill, maybe some basil too. And something very linalool heavy. Like it could be like a rosewood accord or coriander. What on earth is going on here? I kind of like it. I'm kind of digging it. I don't really even recall looking at the notes pyramid. I could be entirely off. This is just going from my brain and what my brain is perceiving from it. Okay, this is my second favorite so far. Belle de Jour, Eris Parfums. This is from a house that I was very excited to explore, Ser, from Japan. And this is Kazehikaru from Ser. It's a lot of unique materials that are put into Ser. I believe it's an all-natural house, or it's predominantly natural. Not that that means much to me, as long as the fragrance smells great. All right, get another scent strip. I'm sorry once again, Boz, that I can't see your comments, but I do see that there's much spirited conversation, and I wish I could be more of a part of it. My apologies. Okay, because we're gonna try Kazehikaru. Kazehikaru. Ooh, this reminds me of like the skin of Satsumas. Ooh. So fresh, but real fresh, not perfume fresh, like fresh herbs and citrus rinds. A little bit something left field now going on. And this is yet again, like, I could look at, I think what I'll do is for a couple of them where I don't know the notes pyramid, we'll look at them after I do all of these and just compare notes. Clary Sage, something that feels like Clary Sage could be totally off. Yeah, this is a lot of naturals. Yeah, that's really nice. Very pricey stuff, though. Oh, goodness. Very limited. I think they do limited runs of these as well. Yeah, that's nice. That will be third place so far. So we have De Profundis, Belle de Jour, and Kazehikaru. Put them all together. Here. Okay. That is getting a giggle out of me. All right. Bois from Chanel, the EDP version, not the EDT, not an old version, a newer eau de parfum version of Bois d'Azil. And I've heard mixed reviews about this one. Very nice sprayer on these Chanel testers, or Chanel sample, I guess. Ooh. I'm gonna actually reset my nose and really get into this one. That's the best way to do it, not coffee beans. Just breathe into your arm. Maybe drink some water. I drink a lot of water when I do this as well. This is a lovely floral woods. We have that telltale ylang-ylang. Ylang-ylang and sandalwood goes so well together, I must say. Just like they go well with aliphatic aldehydes. That signature combo from Chanel. No, these were actually all gifted to me, all given to me in a trade of samples. Okay, just give me a second, folks, here. Be with you in just a moment. This is definitely in the least unisex too. This is not a terribly masculine woody fragrance. But there's something about that ylang-ylang. And ylang-ylang can be a very difficult note for some people. But it is sticking to the paper on this one. I do really want to try this on my skin, actually. I know I've already done a number of them. Because I want to see what happens on the skin. Ooh. Very cinnamic, too. But not cinnamon. Like almost like cinnamic compounds in it. Wow. Okay. I'm surprised by my reaction to this. I thought I would be sort of so-so about Bois de Zile, given all that I've heard, especially about the Eau de Parfum. I was thinking, oh, I must just experience a vintage version, because that's the only kind that matters, you know, the usual story. But ooh. And I definitely can see the origins, how Egoist originated from Bois de Zile. For sure. Wow, I think I'm going to have to bump something out of... I think I'm going to have to bump Belle de Jour to third place, put Bois de Zile in second, and De Profundis first, and Kazehikaru fourth, Eau de Lisk fifth, Violette Volynka sixth, and Nightclubbing seventh. We got one more though. Ah, nice. So you went for the Casaque. Have you already received it? And what were your thoughts? Couler Jambe, another one. That bottle, the mold for that bottle is unlike anything else, with the little scalloped edges. Like, I would love that just for the bottle. I mean, I'm sure the fragrance is pretty nice as well, but that bottle, I mean, I'm just a sucker for visuals as well. I'm just as much visually as I am olfactorily oriented. Let's face it, like, part of the fun is just, you know, the bottles and the packaging are just great in a lot of these. Oleg Cassini for men. The late 80s version, not the Jovan version, because I have that late 80s version as well, and that's stupendous. Thank you, PS. And thank you, Boswaldo. I'm just realizing that is via Boswaldo. Thanks, Bos. I've seen in whiskey tasting people smelling their elbow pit to kind of reset their nose. Yeah, I go kind of here. You know, making sure my clothes don't have any fragrance on them. It's far more effective than coffee beans. I don't know. I'm sure there's some sort of explanation for how that came to be, but coffee beans are not as effective because they are stimulating your olfactory receptors even more so. They're making more confusion. So it actually can do more harm, not harm, it's not harming your olfactory receptors, but it can actually make things a little bit more difficult as far as resetting. Hi there, Drefadon, scent of the day, Terre Essence, Spirit of the Glen, deciding on which to spray more and which should be on top of which, loving the booziness of Glen. Yeah, I would say I would still choose Egoist to Bois de Zile. Egoist is really up there. Yeah, and now that this is drying more, this is a very... trying to find the right adjective for it. I was going to say feeble. But that's kind of giving, kind of doing a disservice to it because it is beautiful. It's just very reserved. It's a very reserved recreation, the Eau de Parfum of Bois de Zile. Like this, On paper, it smells dynamite. On skin, on my skin at least, it's very subtle. Jean-Claude, aka Mishi, good to see you. Okay. No. And hello, Terry Smiles. With white pants? Never before Memorial Day. Never. Never. I think that's an American thing. You never wear white before Memorial Day or after Labor Day. And I would never wear white pants. No. No, sir. Not my steez. Thanks very much, Dan. Good to see you. Oh, it's not that version. Okay, so what is the bottle that you have? Tell us a little bit about it. Hi there, my friend. Bois de Iles is still quite nice. It's not something that I absolutely must get a full bottle and add it to my already outrageous collection of things that will never run dry. But it's nice. I think now that I had it on my skin, it's kind of taking, it's falling a few notches. All right, I have one more, and then we'll talk about some other stuff. Maria Candida Gentile, Lankaran Forest. This is a dabber, and I haven't much else to dab on. Oh, I could dab here. Okay, so you don't have, right. So it is the same fragrance, different bottle without the scalloped edges. Oh, that's a shame. I'm just like so into the idea of having one of those bottles. And then there's another one, I think it's called AF77, which I think maybe it was just basically the same fragrance renamed, also with the scalloped edges. Yeah, one could look at it that way. It's definitely some sort of investment. I just have yet to figure out how to invest in the whole collection in as scrupulous a manner as possible. Oh, great. Yeah, Monsieur Jean Couturier. Yeah, wonderful. Glad that Anoush had some for you. That's a great leather from the 70s. Wonderful stuff. Okay. Lankaran Forest. This was an impromptu stream, and I sometimes do like to fly solo. If we don't really have a panel, especially when I'm doing something like this. But since it's also because it's an impromptu stream, that is subject to change. So we may very well see Rachel if she's available, or someone else. All right, I am applying Lankaran Forest. I am actually due to receive a fourth fragrance from Maria Candida Gentile, Hanbury, which I will be featuring during a mimosa week on my Instagram. Those reviews will also appear on Instagram and on Fragrantica and Base Notes. Hmm. Ooh. Interesting. I'm just, just the usual, just burying my nose into my forearm. Very interesting note going on in here. There is something very, very reminiscent of pine needles, pine, but it's surrounded by something a bit sweeter. This is very foresty. I feel like when I was reading about Lankaran forest, there was something about the notes breakdown that kind of took me aback and made me uncertain. Feel uncertain about it. Hmm. Yeah, I'm intrigued by this one. But it's, to me, it's just very much just giving the impression, much in the same way. So it kind of reminds me a little bit of Fianna Ghee, except much more pine forward and very little in the way of other resinous elements or dried fruit elements. There's nothing like that. It's very focused on the pine, but not this like isobornyl acetate pine sol cleaner kind of pine. Not like a fake, not like a car freshener tree pine. Like maybe there's rosemary too. Intriguing. All right, so there's a few of these that I do want to actually look at the notes breakdown and compare notes, and which we'll do in a moment. Hello there. Good to see you. Oh, well, thank you. Very kind of you. And Derek is a good friend, and I'm glad that he is doing YouTube videos. And he needs the encouragement because he deserves it. If you are not already subscribed to Varanus Radari here on YouTube, you should do so. He has a lot of great things to say. Absolutely. Pardon me. Have I tried Milano Fragranze Basilica? I have not. I have not. I'm not familiar. Coty Chypre. I have the 80s relaunch of Coty Chypre. It's quite nice. I have yet to smell the original. And I know the original is regarded as very different, but the 80s version is no less lauded as an excellent fragrance. Ooh, Living Libations. I actually have gotten essential oils and blends from them. Quite some time ago, I would purchase things from Living Libations. I shall check that out. I love that. Trees, please. Another brand I was curious about is Pineward. He came onto the scene about 3 years ago, and artisanal, small batch. I would like to try that house as well. Very, very young, talented man, from what I've heard, who does focus on coniferous notes, but is just beginning to, from what I read, expand into other types of accords and themes. All right. I am going to now see if what I observed has anything to do with what the notes breakdowns have on some of these. A couple of the first ones I already was pretty familiar with what the notes breakdown was. And of course, when, it has the name of one of the notes, that makes it kind of easy for you. Although there have been times where the name of the note has been in the fragrance, but you're not picking up on much of it. A little oppo. All right. I keep saying all right, and I apologize for that. I guess it's been a very long day. I'm not at 100%. Oh, Belle de Jour. Okay. Looking this up even as we speak. So that one ranked pretty high. Antoine Lee. Just as I thought, there's a coriander in the top. And there was something that was very, very punchy green, so that the seaweed must account for that. Orange blossom, pink pepper, and a jasmine. That one's worth revisiting. I was very intrigued by that one. Kazehikaru. Kazehikaru from Ser. That one I was picking up very fresh citruses. And, oh, yeah, yuzu, shiso leaf, hamansu, or Japanese rose, neroli, and vetiver. And the perfumer's name is Yasuyuki Shinohara. Odalisque. Odalisque, which seems to be Patricia Nicolai's ode to the classic Chypre. Very mossy. And, yeah, citruses, lots of bergamot, oak moss, jasmine. It did remind me of Mitsuko somewhat, but quite nice, quite nice. Nightclubbing from Celine. Didn't rank nearly as high as I thought it would, considering all of the chatter about it. I picked it up as being very much like an ashtray in a boozy club, which is probably its intention. I did not pick up nearly as much galbanum as people claim. The Eris could perhaps have, I mean, it's on this hand. Yeah. Now it's drying down to something a little bit more characteristic of like a vanillic, somewhat sweet, musky Eris. I would hazard to say it is not worth spending all of the money on a full bottle of this, but worth a sniff for that intriguing top note. The very ashy, smoky, hazy kind of top note that you know, that it's not as intriguing to me as it dries down. It's not as interesting. Oh, hey, Mr. Clean. If you weren't relaxed before, I bet your all male JJ's vibe has a calming effect. Or you can do both. Whatever works for you. I was a bit vituperative earlier, though. There were some people who were not too pleased that I was on my soapbox. But sometimes it has to be done, and a couple of people were none too pleased about it. But I felt like it was necessary because I had to kind of get the word out. But it's all good. All good. Yeah, some great stuff, some okay stuff. That's what I would have imagined. Mixed reviews. $65 for 18. Hey there. Good to see you, my friend. Oh, that would be wonderful. I would really appreciate that. Perhaps I can do a stream in the future just focusing on impressions of Pineward. Because pine and coniferous notes are among my favorites. I love when they're done well. I would have to agree with that. Hey, I could do that in the future. It's like I was saying earlier, like I really, truly wish that I had more time. For the next 4 weeks, I'm going to be doing a spring floral series, and each week will be a different floral note. This week it will be Narcissus / Jonquil. Next week will be Hyacinth. The week following that will be Lily of the Valley, and then the fourth week will be Violet. No worries. I'll be sticking around for a while. Yeah, it wasn't really, I didn't really think it was much of a soapbox. I was just sort of speaking out, just giving my thoughts on just being careful with our words and, keeping in mind the consequences of what we say and how they make an impact on others. That sometimes it's perfectly okay to have an opinion and to think the way that we think about a person, place, or thing, but to have a little bit more sensitivity with how we choose to communicate that. Myself included. I've been guilty of it myself, especially in public forums. Fernando, hey, you have your grab bag on the way. You're my 4 doubles and a hefty little pouch of samples that are on your way. I hope you enjoy. I actually am going to do one more of those for the time being. I have one more giveaway. Well, it's not a giveaway because you have to make a donation, but if you are in the US and you donate 10 coffees, that's a total of $50. I will give a mystery grab bag of 4 full bottle fragrances plus a generous assortment of samples from my expansive sample collection. I'll put the banner up here, and you can donate at www.buymeacoffee.com/JosephCOLBP. And once again, that is in the US only for the time being. In the future, I hope to make it easier to send out different things outside of the US. It felt like a lot of the Pinewood offerings were 80% of the way done. A lot of them finished like blah. So they kind of felt more like sketches, is what I'm hearing or what I'm reading. Oh, it is so sad. I hope that you have a wonderful evening, my friend, and I will see you again soon. An intriguing fougere. I actually smelled one very recently from Darren Allen called Dorian's Fougere. You may want to check that out. I did a first impression of it recently. Actually, I wasn't doing a first impression. I did one on my own, but I was discussing it on one of the recent streams. Darren Allen Perfumes Dorian's Fougere. And Regis says one of my favorite piney fragrances is Source Adage. Oh, Source Adage. I'm always wanting to pronounce everything in a French manner. Source Adage. That looks like a Gaelic name, is it? Cyan? I would not know how to pronounce that. I have not tried it. Obviously, unfamiliar with it. I'd be interested in giving it a try. All right. So the verdict is for all of the 8 that I've sampled, I think I'll smell the ones that landed on my skin one more time. Violet Volynka, pretty stuff. It has a lot of that. I'm going to say it, even though most of you folks are going to be like, I don't know what the hell that is, but Isoraldine 95, which is a base that contains a lot of ionones in it. It is a violet leather. It's pretty stuff, but not my favorite kind of leather because it's a very modern leather. And I just have a tough time with Suederol. I have a tough time with that car interior, patent leather kind of smell. But it's nice. I do think that this is a toss between the hold on a second, between the De Profundis, Serge Lutens, and Belle du Jour, the Antoine Lee creation from Eris Parfums. Those are the 2 that I think are the winners. Bois d'Azil, beautiful, obviously. Stellar materials. Love the ylang ylang and sandalwood synergy. It's And there's almost something that kind of reminds me of Masoya bark, like a lactonic kind of, but it's very subdued. It's too subdued for me. It leaves me yearning more. Nightclub Celine, fascinating opening, hackneyed dry down. Odalisque, a great, by the color by numbers, not to be insulting, very color by numbers, Chypre in the style of Mitsuko, or maybe Coty Chypre. Well done, not essential, for me, at least. Lankaran Forest, Maria Candida Gentile. Oh, that was the one that I wanted to look at the notes breakdown. Just pardon me while I... Lankaran Forest from Maria Candida Gentile, released in 2016. Citruses, herbal notes, woody notes, and grapefruit. Maybe it's the grapefruit that smells very piney to me. Yeah. I think that the grapefruit kind of reminds me of like when you crush like cypress needles or like, you know, other types of conifer needles, and you have that citric kind of terpenic top note to it. It just, you know, when you get the oil on your skin, I think it's quite lovely. And obviously quite diaphanous too. So take that as you will. If you're not keen on diaphanous fragrances, you're probably not going to be too interested in Lankaran Forest. And a few of her fragrances are diaphanous. They are very sheer. I love when sheer fragrances are well done and beautiful fragrances that take you elsewhere. But not all fragrances that are sheer and gossamer are going to do that. Some are just flat and light. All of hers are fascinating in their own way. Hey there. Thank you very much, Ashley. And Mr. Clean, are you talking about Jean Couturier 12? Fair enough. Yeah. It's got a certain dry down. It's an acquired taste. That time period when it was very popular. All right, so the winner is... I do want to try Belle de Jour again. I almost feel like Belle de Jour is edging beyond to Profundis. Did I spray that on me or on paper? God. I'm going to roll up my sleeve here. This would be great in the summertime. And in spite of the fact that it has a seaweed note, how should I put this? There isn't that kind of overly briny. Now I know where the brine thing is coming. Isn't this the one where I was thinking, is this dill? It isn't giving wafts of seagulls at low tide and various organic matter left in its wake. It's quite the opposite. It is saline. It is bright. It is punchy, like I said. This could be a new marine favorite. And trust me when I say to you, that is not one of my favorite categories of fragrance. I am very particular on those that fall into that marine or aquatic category. But I must say, this is one of the best, one of the most well done in that category. And I thereby deem Belle de Jour from Eris Parfums to be the winner out of all 8 of the fragrances that I've sampled this evening. De Profundis, very close second. And we'll do a third. I'm not going to do a whole ranking. And the third one would be Lankaran Forest. Yeah, we'll do that. I could do the one at the bottom, the one that I'm least pleased with. I hate to tell you, it's Nightclubbing. So overpriced, so not worth it. Don't waste your money. At least get a sample first. Definitely not something to blind buy. Don't do it. All right, so I've done all my first impressions. I didn't really have anything else planned for this evening. I could preach to you more. I could lecture more. I could lecture to you more about the state of fragrance content creation in the form of live streams. If you want, you can tell me no or yes. I'll count them. I'll count the no's versus the yeses. I mean, this will be archived as well, and I'm sure depending upon who watches it, they'll have different opinions on it. But I felt like I needed to get out. I needed to get it out there because in just the past week, I have been a subject of somebody else's disappointment with what I said in passing during a live stream. Then there was somebody else who had a lot of opinions to say about another live stream. And it's just the subject of, and like I'll say it again from earlier, you know, I want to try to be more mindful of how I share my opinion and whether or not to share my opinion at all. Sorry, Mr. Clean, I'm just leaving your comment up there. I have a tendency to do that. But I think that it's best to just err on the side of caution. And if you have a certain opinion of something, to maybe keep it private or amongst, I don't know, not on a live stream, because I've made that misstep too many times and I regret it. So that was pretty much the whole in a nutshell, what I was talking about earlier. I don't really like the idea of live streams surrounding people, talking about people, what this person said about this person. You know, I tried to enjoy it. I tried to get into it. It never really, I even try to be part of it. It doesn't fit me. It's not who I am. Like, it doesn't satisfy me. And this is no like judgment on who it does satisfy and who it entertains. Like, this is like, I don't want to be judgmental. Who am I to say? Like I said, far be it from me to tell other people how they want to bide their time and with what kind of content and what kind of material. It's just, I have to remove myself from it entirely and just do my own thing. You know, I don't want to be aligned with it. So no, because that would be being part of it. If I were to share the stories, if I were to share, you know, like, cite this example, I'm sure some people who watch some of the other live streams, they hear about them and they see them and they know it's getting tiresome. It is getting really tiresome. Well, I appreciate that. I did get much pushback early on in the stream, and not much pushback. Maybe I'm over exaggerating. It felt like it though, because people are saying like, "Oh, you know, like stop your preaching. We don't want to hear it." Like, you know. And then my microphone had malfunctioned, and somebody said, "Oh, you know, he's not saying anything worth listening to." It's like what is this? This hasn't happened to me yet. This is not what I like. this is not what I like in my, in my domain here, like you're all welcome, here. But if it bothers you, just turn it off. Like, I know that there have been so many times where I've been tempted to type something like, so many times, to go there and say to somebody, you're being righteously indignant, the things that you were saying are insensitive to other people, or the things that you're saying make you sound holier than thou, and so on and so forth, or I don't want to hear it, just cut to the chase, and so it's like, but like, is it really worth it? Is it really worth it to do that? Am I like, out of the ordinary for feeling this? Can you briefly share your general impression of Costas with us? Thanks. We should get, because I'm kind of ambivalent about talking about that much more. Costas would be interested in getting your perspective. It is actually one of my favorite notes in fragrance. A few of my favorite fragrances actually contain Costas, whether it was a natural when it was still permissible to be used before it was completely restricted or banned, or the usage of Costas Olifacque, which is a great reconstruction of Costas. Costas Al, which is a base, which is also a great reconstruction. But Costas, my general impression of Costas is one that is shared by many. There are aspects of it that smell very sebaceous. So sebaceous means like of the oils of the skin, sebum. So when we not to get too graphic, but when oils are released from our skin, from our nose, from our face, from our ears, etc., that secretion is called sebum. It's also secreted on the scalp. So there is this sort of like scalpy kind of smell to Costas, which is fascinating. A kind of furriness, like goat's fur, goat's hair, dog smelling, but not like wet. It's very animalic, but not animalic in the usual sense. But what's really remarkable is Costas is actually a plant that grows in India and Southeast Asia, and this comes from the roots of the plant. And what's fascinating about this material when used in perfume is it brings out some beautiful qualities in other materials. It's another one of those ingredients, much like civet or castoreum, where they were never really intended to be the lead role. But in recent years, with a lot of niche perfumery and experimentation, we're seeing them more in the lead. But they're meant to bring out the most beautiful qualities of things that are surrounding it. And be that as it may, you still, if you have a keen enough nose, you can detect that Costas. And I think it's just one of the most peculiar and wonderful and stimulating kind of notes in a fragrance. In fact, one of my favorite fragrances is Lia de Lien from Miller Harris, which has a heavy amount of labdanum, Costas, and vanilla. And I was actually wearing it earlier today. And it just smells like an enhancement to your own body. It just works. Maybe I should just speak for myself, my own body, like what it does with my chemistry. One of my top 5 favorite fragrances of all time, and it is there is a heavy Costas accord to it, and there's also this old book quality to it because of that vanilla with the other elements in it, like just like old, aged pages and the aging glue on the binding of the book, and such a great fragrance. People should stop talking so much garbage about other people generally. I 100% agree. I don't care for it. I don't want it to be a part of my content, not part of my live streams, not part of my channel by any means, and I don't want to partake in it anywhere else. I don't even want to draw attention to anything specific anymore. If I'm on other people's streams, I don't want to partake in conversations about it. No more. Hey, Tripler, what's going on? Oh, and your scent of the day is Couturier Douce. Very nice. Ben de Balma. A Ben de Malma. That's another lovely one. Just my general view on the lives. My general view on the lives is it varies. It varies on the host and the premise. And it's just my opinion. Like, to each their own. I just don't really feel like I fit in, and I don't want to fit in. I have other things in mind while I'm doing this YouTube stuff. All right, we currently have 34 people on. I started this live at about 6 p.m. If we could do a Q&A if you have any questions. I could tell you about some recent acquisitions, two in particular, which I'll be featuring during a Lily of the Valley week in the near future. You're most welcome, Nick. I'm glad that proved to be helpful for you. Anytime. Yes, Narcissus. Oh, yes. Tomorrow, if all things go well, because sometimes my Fridays can be difficult. I want to really try to do my Narcissus video for the Spring Floral series. Thanks, Dave. I really do appreciate that. All right, so I'm saying that so much. This is what I'm like after a long day of working. Dusita Cavatina, this actually came in today. This is from Dusita Parfums. This is Muguet, Lily of the Valley centric fragrance. Probably one of the more unisex of its kind, because very Lily of the Valley forward fragrances do tend to run in what is perceived to be more feminine. But this one's really great, and I'm excited to tell you folks more about it when I review it. So that was one of my newest acquisitions. And also this week, I got this. This is a vintage of Coty Muguet cologne spray. Now, Edmund Rudnitska, if this is the same, what's the word I'm looking for? Same formulation. Hi. If this is the same formulation that Edmund Rudnitska smelled in the 40s or the 50s when he said that the most true to life Muguet, he said it was this, and it was a huge inspiration for him composing the Eris. Fairly certain this is a 70s bottle, maybe early 80s at the latest. Oh my God. I don't know how many out there have smelled Lily of the Valley in the flesh, the actual flower. I have. I've grown up with the flower. I know that smell. I know it because we had them growing in my yard when I was a child, and it is one of my favorite flowers, scent-wise. And I kid you not when I say that just by opening this lovely powder blue cap, and I sniff this humble atomizer, it smells exactly like the smell that first hits you when you smell Lily of the Valley. No lie. Like, I can't wait. I don't want to spray it yet. I want to build up the anticipation and wait until the day that I want to write about it. When I wear it and write about it. But, oh my God. Just smelling this does something to me in a way that none of those 8 fragrances that I just did first impressions on does. It is... I don't know how to explain it, and I haven't even sprayed it yet. But yeah, Coty Muguet de Bois. Muguet de Bois from Coty Paris. Or Coty US. This is blended in the US. Can't assume everything was based in Paris. Seems like most is. Um, yeah, I'm very excited about having this. And that week, of course, I will be reviewing Diorissimo. I'll also be reviewing Profundis from Kenzo, a great release from the early 90s. And I already did a review last year of Louis Poussin from Hermes, Jean-Claude Ellena, but I will be repeating that one, especially for the review. Does this mean that I won't be going on the Mr. Snelly stream anymore? Well, as far as I know, by having conversations with him, and I don't want to quote him, I get the impression that he's moving away from it himself, but don't take my word for it. I can't go on the streams on the weekends anyways, for different reasons. If anything, I show up for a few seconds, few minutes, few seconds, literally sign on and sign off in a flash. But yeah, are you holding my feet to the fire there? Are you suggesting that I am, somehow going against what I'm saying if I go on it? I mean, like, I'm not going to be part of that conversation if that's what you're asking. No, I just don't want to be a part of it, and I have good faith that he's moving away from it. So he is wonderful. PDJ, Beau de Jour. Yes. Henri Robert, I think, did the Coty Muguet, and Edmund Rudnitska was quite inspired by it. I can just do a little fact checking here. Henri Robert. Yeah. The Sillage Blanc actually, so Bandy-esque because it has a lot of that isobutylquinoline. IBQ. What you're picking up is a very high percentage of it, much the same way as you pick up a high percentage in Bandy. And it's nice, but to me, after already enjoying Bandy and Cabochard and Hermes and Miss Bama and Jolie Madame and all these others that have heavy isobutylquinoline from the 50s and 60s, it didn't really add much more, except maybe some modern approach that didn't really woo me. It's good. It's great. It wasn't my favorite from Dusita. My two favorites from Dusita are the Cavatina and Erewhon. Fanfare. I can't say that I have. I'll make a note of it. Pardon me while I make a note of it. So do I. So do I. There's a very special place in my heart for the Lily Valley. Very nice. Would you say that you could make some comparisons between the vintage and more recent version? That's fair. That's fair. You're entitled to your opinion. No, that's understandable. I appreciate that you cleared that up. I appreciate that. Can anyone recommend something different for the summer? I'd make a recommendation, but I want to ask a couple more questions. What are some existing summer scents that you enjoy? And when you think of a summer scent, what comes to mind? And I love you too, my friend. You're very dear to me, and I hope that we can have more conversations in the near future. Except for the opening of the Trident. I have big love for Bundy, but it's got a bold, brash personality. That's peculiar. What version do you have, Duncan? I'm getting there. I hope we all find peace. It's like I was saying at the beginning of the chat. May we all be free from suffering and may we all be happy. And even with the people that try to drag us down, who want to see us hurt, see us bothered, see us feeling some type of suffering, we must look at the suffering that they very well experience that motivates them. That's feel sad and hope that they find their peace as well. I can't say that it will. I'd be happy to have a sample of Molto Schmalto. Molto Schmalto. I'd be happy to have Molto Schmalto sent my way as a sample, but I haven't experienced it and I haven't been able to locate any sample or anyone who has a sample. So, intent, if anybody wants to send a sample of it my way. Love Francesco Schmalto, the original Uomo. It's great. I love the tarragon. We have 41 people on at this very moment. Does anybody want to see if I can get another panelist so we can shoot the breeze on this lovely Thursday night? I'll see if we can get somebody, because this is an impromptu stream. This was not planned like the Fubu streams. No planned guests, no planned panelists. If there's somebody in the chat right now who would like to be a panelist and they can reach me in some other method, because I do not share the link here, let me know. Send me a message on Instagram. Assuming most of you who have been panelists in the past are on Instagram. And just let me know. And you can be a panelist and we can chat a little bit. Let me change the soundtrack a little bit. Chanel 1980 for summer, green and floral. That is a good choice. That one is. Or Chanel Cristal. Micah, that is actually a very good choice. Ashley, tell me just some notes that you gravitate toward, notes that you would find possibly appropriate. Would anything that is heavy in citrus, green, herbal, basil? Let me know. Yeah, I changed the soundtrack a little bit. One of my fly tracks, I don't have a dance track on here right now. And I do honestly have to be careful about copyright too. So I tend to choose tracks where either YouTube can't track down what it is or there is no copyright issue. Like they're okay with it. There is a copyright, but they don't mind that I'm using the music. So I have a limited soundtrack that I can use. It's a very difficult process to choose music that isn't some canned public domain free, what do you call it, like, which I refuse to use because most of it sounds pretty lame. Have I tried anything from Maison Violet? I like some of their fragrances. For example, Unir Double G. I did. I thought they were quite nice. I have the samples sitting here. I might want to revisit them at some point. From my recollection, that is another resurrected house that was around in the early mid-century, 30s, 40s, 50s, and the house was resurrected. Yeah, I found them to be quite nice.
It's been a while. I think that was one of the ones that I was most appreciative of. No, it's more like chill. Like, allow it. I don't know if like fly. I don't know if dance music would be a good vibe for a live stream, but I love dance music. I was a DJ for 10 years. I and I played everything from the earliest disco music to 80s club music to 90s deep house, all over the place. And not really like contemporary. I was all about doing the classics. Just like I'm all about the classic fragrances, and I'm a little bit more fastidious about modern. But that doesn't stop me from appreciating a lot of modern fragrance. Early. Ooh, Aritza, what samples did you choose, Philippe? Hmm. I think maybe something from Miller Harris might. Pardon me. I'm the last person who should be doing that. I was thinking other people snort live or on a video. Learn to mute or blow my nose. You know, there's always turning the camera off and taking care of that. I'm gonna get one fragrance that I think might be a good suggestion. Fleur de Sel. The only problem with Fleur de Sel is it's been discontinued, so I'm not sure if this is an ideal recommendation. But from your description, your work, and your what you're looking for, this one I think this was discontinued. I don't know, maybe like 6 or 7 years ago at this point, maybe or not that long ago. But this is very herbal, but also has a floral heart to it. There is a salty quality, which makes it great for the summertime, but not marine. Um, there's rosemary and thyme, some angelica root, but then it has like this floral heart to it, a bit rosy, some orris, and then it dries down leathery and vetiver. And it's definitely squarely in the middle, unisex too. But Fleur de Sel could be a good one if you're looking for something more on a budget. Um, Bowling Green, Jeffrey Bean. I don't think you could go wrong with that. It isn't exceedingly floral, but it does have some floral elements to it. That could be a good suggestion as well. So those are just two that I can think of. No problem. Happy to help out. Hopefully you can find a bottle of this that's affordable. Don't spend too much money, especially if you're risking a blind buy. But yeah, that it was the one that came to mind just in the way you're describing, what you do and what you're looking for. Vicanto, Mea Culpa. Now, Mea Culpa, is that the patchouli one that they have? I actually haven't sampled anything from the. Is it V Canto or 5 Canto? Like, what is the story with it? Is it Roman numeral 5 Canto? Hi there. Good to see you. Well, that's, yeah, and I want to kind of keep that vibe. Obviously, I'm a fan of ambient, prog rock, new age, a lot of that. Brian Eno style, Tangerine Dream. I have like a lot of rips, MP3s of like old new age tapes. That's kind of my style, at least for soundtracks. In an alternate universe, I am a consultant for, soundtracks for films and television and that sort of thing. So, oh, well, thank you. And that's exactly how I feel. I refuse to accept that kind of gift if that is deemed a gift. But I do accept, gifts of appreciation and gifts of kindness. It's kind of sad when, I remember one time I heard on a live stream that kindness is overrated. Actually, the same person said a lot of other things that are fundamental to human existence to be overrated, including knowledge. And it just had me thinking, like, what is this fresh hell that I am living by interacting with such people? But there have been great people, much like yourself, my friend, that I've gotten to know through live streams, and I'm very grateful. Thank you. And these are the Eris à la Grande, Quid de l'aigle, Quid de l'aigle russe, l'aigle russe, Emprise des Indes, Peau d'Espagne, le Régent, Horizon, and Rêve d'Océan. Oh, nice. I love Empire des Indes and Rêve d'Océan. I actually haven't tried the Quid de l'Aigle. I'd like to give that one a try. You should let me know what your thoughts are on it. Jean-Louis Charrier, that is another great suggestion, Duncan, for the springtime and summer. And that is one that has held incredibly well in reformulation. Miracles do happen, I guess. Yeah, that's a great green floral chypre. Is that so? That's awesome. Who knew? That's great. Miller Harris was one of those earlier houses. Like, I always think of like it wasn't necessarily the first generation, but like the houses that were in vogue in the 2000s. So I first started getting into what would be called niche perfumes in the late 2000s, and it was Miller Harris, L'Artisan Parfumeur, Serge Lutens, Frederic Malle, Lorenzo Villoresi. A lot of these houses that they were the it houses at the time. Annick Goutal. I could just turn over and think of some others because there's some of them are sitting there. Yeah, I think I've covered most of them. But yeah, Miller Harris is one of them, and that was one of the first ones that I discovered, actually. That and L'air d'Orient. Did you? I think I gave you the Scherer 2, Scherer 2. Yeah. Let me know what you think of that one. Right. Yeah. We're all educating each other. We're all learning from each other. And I'm glad that what I sent to you is in good hands and will be appreciated and enjoyed. The Santa Maria Noel Peau d'Espagne, but the Eris à la Grande Peau d'Espagne I have not tried yet. Sounds great. Thank you. Oh, all right. I'll put this on my little notepad of suggestions. Night Stalker by Kenji Kawai. I'll look that up. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry if I did miss that. Filius by Nina Ricci. I actually have sampled it. I think it's quite nice. It is in a similar vein to Yetagan, Aramis Devon, Kapuchi Punjab. It is a pretty complex one. I would like to get a little bit more. I had a very small sample of it, but that gets my approval. But even if it didn't get my approval, I would encourage you to enjoy it no less, because I'm just one person with one opinion. Okay, we're hitting about 7:53 here. I found this cute little 25 milliliter of Acqua de Selva, the Victor version. Look at that, it matches my background and everything. Yeah. And it smells great. It's still so fresh. And there's like a minty element to it too. Minty, coniferous. It's one of those great Italian style, freshy, in that same family as like Pinot Silvestre, Aqua Brava. And I just so happen to have a little mini. These are not minis really. They're just like the smallest quantity I think you could get. This is a 25 mil. The other one's a 25 mil. I got the other one too. Aqua Brava. You gotta love those green herbs. There's a lot of oregano and thyme in this one. This is an oldie. It's a little old version of it. But they still smell so fresh. Oh, unfortunately that Violet Volynka is starting to harsh my vibe now. Like, it's interfering with me smelling. I gotta tell you, I'm not really too crazy about the Violet Volynka, to be fair. Yeah. I'm glad that I got a sample of it. Not that I would have bought that blind. I think, was going to get a 15 milliliter online, but it would have still been too much money to spend just to be disappointed. But this, Aqua Brava. Baby bottles. All right. Put those over there. Okay. I think we might have someone who is willing to join as a panelist. And we'll get that arranged. So if you have any other questions, any requests as far as what to sample, what to review, please feel free. I am just sending a link to add another panelist. I'll be right with you, folks. Thanks for bearing with me. I'll be with you in another moment. right back to the chat here, and okay, great. Oh, a sample? That's perfect. That's the way to go. Get a sample, see how you feel about it, and report back to me. Let me know what you think of it. Hopefully it's something that will please you. Yeah, this Violet Volynka is starting to get on my nerves. It's just not the kind of dry down that I'm feeling right now. It's kind of grating on me. Just making an arrangement here. No, Le Grand. No. Are they easy to sample? I'm willing to try them out. That's another one of my loves. I can't wait until there's a nice spring day, and there will be some nice spring days hopefully soon. We're going to have rain all weekend here in Massachusetts coming up. But for those who have been following me on my Instagram for a while, the other content that I love to share, because I am a firm believer in not having monotone content, as much as I adore perfume, and I refuse to have a second Instagram just to do other kinds of content. That's just bananas. I also share a lot of, like you said, botany, plants. I describe the plants. During mushroom season, I share a lot of mushrooms, trees, other types of flora, even fauna at times. Big fan of insects. I know that's not for everyone. Just scroll really quickly past those if that's not your bag. Yes. If you, I know I'm calling you by your, I think it's just your username, but I'm just calling you Regis because I'm not sure if you want me to call you by your real name. But if you could just tell me once again what the name of the house was. It already escapes me. I know you mentioned it just moments ago. I'll be sure to check those out. Pardon me. Philippe, a particular version of Roche Femme. I think all versions are nice. The newer versions do run a little bit more on the spicy side with this cumin note, and I kind of find that a nice pairing with the plum and the jasmine and the other good stuff. But my favorite one is the one from maybe the late 80s to early 90s. My favorite one that's actually accessible enough to find. But they're all great. I can show you the one that I have. Just get a second. And then, Danilo, I'll bring you in just a second. I'm just going to grab that bottle and then we'll bring you in. This is the version that I have here. So this is produced by Roche Paris. And note, the color is sort of a plum wine color. And the cap, the newer caps have a lot more ridges. And this is, let's see if I can... You can notice the difference on the ridges in that one. I don't have my newer version of the bottle right with me. It's going to take some time, but this is the version that I have. But that's the one I would recommend if you can find this, but the newer versions are great too. All right, I'm going to bring in my friend Danilo. He is better known by the stream circuit as Basic Morlaco. Hello.
Hi, JJ. Can you hear me well?
I can hear you very well. Thanks.
Oh, yeah. I always have microphone issues. Somehow it's...
I almost feel like I have to turn myself up a little bit now.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you for having me today. I wanted to join the conversation. It is, as always, it's a treat to hear you speak perfumes. I believe every time I tune into one of your streams, I am more knowledgeable right after. So congratulations on everything you do, and don't really care that much about negativity as it is a part of our existence, as you may know. I like Marcel Proust in his wonderful work, Recherche de temps perdu. He always brings up the fact that these moments are also as much part of the happy moments, so we need them. I wanted to share with you my scent of the night, if that's possible.
Of course. Why don't we zoom on in and have you...
Well, this is called Ebene by Balmain. And this is a recommendation that I read from your review in Fragrantica. When I wanted to pick up a bottle of any vintage perfume, I always read your reviews because that seals the deal for me. And I have to say that this is wonderful. I really love this perfume very much. There's something... As they say in French, there's a je ne sais quoi about this fragrance that just really takes the cake for me, as it were. I really enjoy the vintages, JJ, so thank you for that.
Well, I'm honored and I'm humbled. That's a very special fragrance. Yeah. It really is a very special one. That, you know how people have their Patou pour homme, that is my Patou pour homme. That is the one that has a profound effect on me, and it is from a certain time, a certain period in fragrances marketed to men where they were experimenting with the understated. That's a beautiful bottle, by the way. And there's an herbal quality to it. There is this sort of it's a granularity to it, almost like it's a prickliness in a good way. It's beautiful, beautiful stuff. Yeah. That's great. I'm so glad you could find a bottle of that.
Well, it's very difficult to find bottles like this because I'm on a search now. I want to smell as much vintage fragrance as possible because I think there's some aspects about the 80s and the 90s where fragrances are. Maybe you know more about this, but I think regulations were not the same as it were in these times. So I would like to hear more about that, JJ, if possible. If you know maybe why is it that fragrances from the 80s and the 70s have this particularity about them that are so attractive?
I think it has something to do with not only with the materials that were used that may or may have not have been restricted or have become limited, but also just reflecting the zeitgeist of the times. So the idea of masculinity and whatever, so we're just speaking in terms of fragrances marketed specifically to men. The ideals, the masculine ideals, have shifted over time, and culturally, fragrances have reflected it in different ways. And you see that from the earliest beginnings, where you had your first fragrances that were specifically marketed to men, because before that, the fragrances were not even gendered. They really, unless it was suggested in the name, hence femme, even though femme is unisex and there's no issue with anyone wearing it. There wasn't really a distinction. And that distinction started to come in the mid-century, where the idea of men having a corner of the market of personal accoutrements for what's the word I'm looking for, self-improvement or sartorial attention was really coming into vogue again after some time, because the last time you were really seeing that was maybe the end of the 19th century with the Edwardian period, etc. So you had like Caron with Parfums de Nicolai, and what's really interesting too is some of these fragrances, they initially were marketed to women and then they shifted. And there's two big examples of that. You had Canu from Dana. Canu was originally marketed to women. Not to refer, I almost said transition, and I don't want to open up Pandora's box with that. It's not that, but because I'm very respectful to that. But it did change in marketing from marketed to women to marketed to men. Another one was Old Spice. Old Spice, right. Shilton originally marketed that to women. It moved over to being a men's scent. So when we think about that, when we think about the fact that of the very same fragrance, and we're talking, 30s through the 50s, that the very same fragrance was originally intended for women and then changed to intended for men, I always point this out when people put so much emphasis on the gendering of fragrance. The gendering of fragrance is all about cultural perception, which that's temporal, and it has shifted from decade to decade and from one part of the world to the other. So getting back to the way that masculine fragrances were composed in the late 70s through the 80s, we're thinking about grooming and the emphasis of the fragrance for a man was meant for grooming versus the fragrance for a woman was meant for to be alluring and to be sensuous. And the lines started to be blurred because there were cultural changes in the 70s where a man could be sensuous in his own way through his accoutrements, through what he would wear. You think about the styles of the 70s. Think about how liberated men's styles were in the 70s.
Correct.
Starting to unbutton, starting to show a little bit of chest hair. Jewelry was becoming more acceptable. So that was also reflecting on the fragrances of the time, where notes that were more characteristically deemed for women's fragrances started to travel over to the men's fragrances. And you see that with a lot of the chypres. Men didn't really have too much in the way of chypres until the 70s. And then there became plenty of them to go along with all the fougères. So to get into the materials themselves and it really has to do with the budgets for these fragrances. The fragrances had much bigger budgets, much more of a timeline for development. So with that timeline of development, much care and attention was put towards that being a successful product. It wasn't an age of as much disposable consumerism as it is today, and also dealing with a fractured attention span. Think flankers upon flankers upon flankers. That's a reflection of the fractured attention span of the consumer, and the consumer demanding choices because they can't focus on one thing at a time. So going back 40 years ago, there wasn't that kind of fracture. So it enabled these fragrances to be developed with a lot more care and attention. That being said, though, it's not to say that there was this inherent superiority with those fragrances, but I will say inherent superiority with much of the fragrances that were released by mainstream designer houses. There just ended up being a shift. There ended up being a shift in the late 90s to the 2000s where designer houses and the like started to look at the idea of echelons. So the fragrances that they used to put a lot of attention to for the average consumer, they were starting to put just more attention to the higher echelon of exclusive lines. And you would see that come into play. You name the house, your Chanel, your Hermes, your Givenchy, and so on and so forth, and Armani. But if you weren't able to spend that kind of money, you had this whole world of niche, which people think that niche is really expensive, but as you know, it can run the gamut in price as well. So niche actually shows more of an attention to the development, usually, but of course not obviously. There are some houses that we know of, and Ramsey the other night did discuss one of them. I'm not going to mention the name because I don't want to get hate mail. But there are some that there isn't given that same kind of attention and development, and we know those as well. But not to digress, you look at the 80s, the most of it has to do with not even so much the materials being restricted in IFRA and that whole narrative. It had more to do with the fact that there was much more care and attention with developing the product and the product's identity. Right.
Well, if I may add to that point, JJ, there's the late great Roger Scruton, a British philosopher who recently passed away. He points out in a documentary called Why Beauty Matters, and he observes that not only in art forms but in any other area such as architecture, we somehow a certain beauty aspect is getting lost in the transitions that we are moving along with in our current times. So I believe perfumery falls in the same category, in the same realm with art. For me, it is so. I think if a composition makes you feel a certain way and it transports you to another place, I think it falls right into that category as a painting or as a symphony. So I get it. Currently, we expect new flankers every other month for a successful fragrance. It's all about commerce. It's all about marketing. It's the times we live in are this. So, I without trying to sound critical, because I don't know that much about it, so to have an informed opinion, but I would say that having smelled vintage fragrances that had an idea, a concept that were perhaps not that close together with marketing and commercial purposes, I think those fragrances just remind us that there's beauty in fragrance. And I would like to also show this recent. Also, I found this, even though it's a beautiful, a designer house. It's called Equipage by Hermes, but this is quite an old bottle. And the leather aspects about this, there's some green beautifulness about that fragrance that just transports me to that decade. And having read literature and having seen art that was going on at that time, I just have to respect the creator efforts and the creative efforts from those folks back then.
Mm-hmm. And there was, the emphasis is on effort. I don't want to undermine the effort that is put into master perfumers today, but we also have to look at the pressure on the master perfumer and the briefs that are presented to them, and the very likelihood that there are restrictions on what they can or would prefer to do versus what they are directed to do. And I think that there probably was less of a dissonance between what a perfumer wanted to do and what the house or the producer expected. I think maybe I'm wrong, maybe somebody who has more knowledge and wisdom on this, but there seemed to be probably a little bit more faith in having the perfumer do their magic. And the brief was a little bit more of an abstract, and then the perfumer could really run with it. Whereas I think maybe today there is a lot more back and forth. Like, no, you got to tweak this a little bit. You got to do this to that. You got to remove this. You got to add this. And I just have a feeling that is the discourse today versus, 40 or 50 years ago.
Yeah. Well, in the commercial aspect about fragrances, I can share a little bit of information, because for a company that big as Hermes or Dior or even Guerlain, let's say, it is almost impossible for them to risk something that is not going to guarantee a certain amount of sales. Because they have a huge muscle of people who work in these companies in different departments, because you have to add up accounting, marketing, human resources, production, etc. So if you are going to be releasing a fragrance for Dior, it must have at least a guarantee sale amount that is just going to provide the company success in the future. So I think they have gotten too big, to the point now where they cannot change names of the fragrances, even though we know it's not the same fragrance. They still have to call it Sauvage, because they have to guarantee a certain amount of sales. I understand that also, and can you imagine, JJ, if you were working for a brand like this and they approach you in a room and they said, okay, JJ, this is our proposition. We would like you to produce a fragrance in this type of category, but you need to be reminded always that you need to guarantee us an amount of sales that is this big. So I think that restricts so much the artistry of the perfumer, because Maison Francis Courjean is the current perfumer at Dior. He hasn't really put out a new big fragrance yet, but hopefully he's working on something of the like. But I believe that work, I don't want to be in those shoes. That's what I want to say.
No, it isn't an enviable position to be in right now. And then, that's also why a lot of these perfumers feel a great relief to be able to do side projects, to have their, if they're, depending upon whatever contract they're in, so on and so forth, to be able to release something under their own house, or to be able to branch off on another project. And, we've seen that come into play, since, for example, like Frederic Malle, where that was one of the first houses where a spotlight was actually put on the perfumer. That was something that was pretty much unprecedented. So perfumers started to be in the lexicon of fragrance enthusiasts. You could refer to your favorite perfumer and what they were doing, which, some perfumers prefer the anonymity, but I think that was a fascinating sort of turn of events, which also likely could have indirectly caused the change in the way that the designer market or the mainstream market operates. There are so many pieces in motion here, and you also got to think about how things have changed economically, and how the consumer has changed, and the consumer that probably could afford a fragrance, in a department store can no longer do that. There's such a shift. Like, take for example, something as beautiful as this, like this Muguet de Bois by Coty. This could have been sold at a drugstore,
right? And
you don't, you just don't have drugstore fragrances like this anymore. You don't,
right.
So there was more accessibility to find fragrances at an affordable price. So that's another topic worth exploring too. What has happened? Look at the shift in incomes and how that's changed, and it's just sort of like a response to that. There's some interesting questions as well here. I spotted one from Tripler. JJ, do perfumers make the scent direction of an era, or does the public choose it? I thought that was a very good question. What do you think of that one?
Well, I think the public has to do a lot with the choices in perfumers, especially in the big houses, because it's like music. Music has a certain type of rhythm that is sticky, and what people call it, is very catchy. So that rhythm is present in every single song. Let's take a Latin rhythm like reggaeton, which is a very joyful type of dance music. Is very popular in Spanish-speaking countries. People absolutely love that genre, and it's very upbeat and very nice. But if you analyze the songs, the same beat is present in almost every single song. So that's the core, as it were. The core characteristic of the song has to have that beat, And I believe the same happens in fragrances. It has to have a certain composition, a certain core in order for it to sell a lot of units.
Sorry, I just had to take myself off of mute. That is something that I don't know if this is just a sort of like a cyclical generation thing when you get to be a certain age when you're over the age of 35 or what have you, where you feel like everything starts to sound the same and everything is sort of similar. But I just can't help but to feel that there isn't, even though we have access to so much variety and so much information and so many choices, that in the end, what ends up reigning supreme is stuff that it's very safe, like very safe, very formulaic. I'm sure it would be a fascinating exercise to draw comparisons, like you said, between music and scent, which I love to do anyhow. But you look at something like the fact that fragrances today are meant to evoke something either very clean and inoffensive or edible. And what kind of correlations can we draw between that shift and the shift in music? Like, the music doesn't seem very clean, but the fragrances seem a little too clean. It's kind of funny. You know, you see the fragrances, you could get away with being a little unclean, sort of under the radar. And yeah.
So it's, they are charging a lot of money for fragrances that are, in my opinion, sometimes are not worth half of what they are proposing. So that's quite unclean, and I don't like those positions companies take. They just milk every single bit they can out of the public, myself included. Sometimes I feel that I'm completely underwhelmed, and I feel that I have overpaid. Pretty much every single time that happens. Very rarely do I come across a fragrance that is currently being released that I say, oh, this is quite good. I'm not being negative. It is just, I as you said, maybe it's a certain age we get this way. We get a bit negative about our current state of affairs. But if this is the way perfumery is going, even though I'm 35, I refuse to go that route. I would rather stay on the 80s and 90s fragrances. Another lovely fragrance, JJ, if I may, that I recently also got. It's called Boss Sport by Hugo Boss. And this, I really enjoyed this because it's the sporty aspect about this fragrance is rather uncommon. It is not as green. It is beautiful. It is a scent, it's aromatic also, and it's perfect for those tennis sessions because I do play tennis on the weekends. So I can clearly see why Boss put out that fragrance at that time. If you had the opportunity to play tennis on grass, that smell is somehow in that fragrance, and I believe it was meant to for you to wear during you play your tennis match, and then after maybe you have a couple of beers with your friends when the tennis match is over. The fragrance still lingers, very classy, very, very nice and clean. Yeah.
And that's one I haven't actually experienced. That's one I've overlooked. I've been aware of its existence, but it sounds like it pleases you, and that makes me happy. I should probably try to seek out a bottle if it's not too expensive. I don't want to spend too much money on it, but yeah, that sounds great.
It's a 1987 release, and it's as I said before, those aspects about those times I can see them reflected in the fragrance. So I frequent the US at least thrice a year because of personal dealings that I do over there. If I would love to. get some samples. I don't want to say maybe this publicly, maybe this sounds like not correct, but you know what I mean. I just have so much appreciation for you in general, and I think people like you are needed in our fragrance community, because nobody hardly reads anymore. That's why I don't believe perfumers put the little pamphlets on their fragrances, because nobody cares to read them anymore. So it's just so sad. So that's why cheer up. You have plenty of positivity about you, that you don't really need those people who maybe talk badly. Maybe they're just jealous, let's face it, because who wouldn't like to have that experience in fragrances? Because we all love fragrances. Who wouldn't love to have that knowledge? I aspire someday to at least acquire half of what you know, in order for me to enjoy more. So this is not. I know I'm sounding a bit like maybe kissing butt, but I'm not. I'm just being absolutely frank here. I have no commitments here. And lastly, if I may, JJ, this also is a fresh, beautiful fragrance. This is called Vetiver by Guerlain, and I got this. This is also a rather older version of Vetiver, and this is also quite fresh, and I would say to some extent it's a bit even relaxing. It is a perfect scent, I believe, for an office setting. I really enjoy this and wearing in the office. It sprays a whole lot of fragrance. I have gotten through a lot of it already, even though I haven't worn it maybe 4 or 5 times. But I just enjoy this very much also.
That's wonderful. Yeah, any version of vetiver is just incredible. That's my favorite vetiver, and in my top 10 favorite fragrances of all time. I've been wearing Guerlain long before I even got really crazy into fragrance. Guerlain Vetiver and Guerlain Abbey Rouge, the first bottles that I bought were in the late 90s, when it was definitely uncool until I began to those two. And I'm glad that they've both seen a pretty considerable renaissance in the past several years. Another great contributor to the fragrance community, and it's great to see you, Pep. Wonderful to have you tune in here.
Hi.
Wanted to draw attention to some of the comments here, go a little bit back. Let's see how far back I need to go. I agree for the most part about perfumes being genderless, but it doesn't hold up with modern girly sweet stuff meant for teen girls and young women. Men can't wear that unless they're young, feminine. Those are very unique fragrances that didn't really exist before the 21st century, and they're mostly these very gourmand versions of florals and ambers that we just didn't really see as gourmand and as filled with ethyl maltol or ethyl vanillin at such great quantities as you see in those. Like, we've never seen anything quite like that or smelled anything quite like that before the 21st century. So, yeah, I'm not particularly keen on them. I usually think of maybe a lot of the designer fragrances to kind of fall into that category. And I do think that they are trying to get that young demographic, and the young demographic, what is marketed to them has changed a great deal in this century than in previous years. It was very different. It becomes quite a tour. Or if you have too many fragrances, you're always trying to go through your likes as quickly as you can to get to your loves. I fall into a different category altogether. That is like not even I can't even do that at all. I have like a museum. Like I get overwhelmed like what to wear from day to day, because I know I don't have enough lifetime to wear the things that I have.
Right.
Duncan says I need to get my nose in some pure castoreum. It's not too hard to get. Should give it a try. It's very intense when it's not diluted. Just catching up here. JJ, do perfumers make the scent direction? We already discussed that. Thank you very much. Okay, this is the era of safety and safe space, and it's seen in our contemporary frags. It depends on what you mean by safety, and I know that you have them each in quotation marks. what you mean by safety and safe space. And I know safe space has its connotations. Sometimes I feel like it's said in sort of a pejorative way. I don't know if I want to open that can of worms either. But yeah, I think in this age of clean living and not to be offensive, not to get into the, not to intrude on other people's comfort, if that's what you mean, or what they feel is safe. Yeah, I think that fragrances are not nearly as popular as they were at another time either. So yeah, I think that you make a point there. As far as safe spaces, I just asked that Tripoli that you clarify that a little bit. We can talk about that a little bit more. I'm happy to. Just kind of get early sport fragrances are great. Sport de Paco Rabanne, that's one I do have and enjoy. Solfait de Lancôme, I have that right over here. And Lacoste, yeah. All of them are great. And thank you very much, Pedro Mar. Or Pedro Moore. My contact lenses are quite dry. Dave says here, but do you think the likes of Dior take a little bit of a hit on things like Fahrenheit Parfum, Eau Sauvage, etc.? I'm guessing they are not shifting the type of volume they do with modern Sauvage. Yeah, I mean, I think that they know that they have a certain demographic that they don't want to alienate. And they do want to keep these recognizable brands relevant. And that's exactly part of why they do these flankers, because they don't have to deviate from using that brand recognition, but they can make something that appeals more so to a contemporary taste. But often when that happens, the flanker ends up being so far removed from the original that it is a little frustrating because it doesn't really relate to it anymore. There's a few like that. Yeah. Just a little bit more catch up here. Okay. All right, we did. I only know about safe words. You and me both. Those are some great selections, though, my friend. That's impressive. The vintage vetiver as well. Those have become a little bit more difficult to obtain. So that's a real treasure.
And if I may show the very last one for
yes,
tonight.
Of course. Mm-hmm.
This one is a treat. This is by Jean-Claude, and this is called 1000. And this is a small vial. I believe it had only 15 or 20 ml. It comes like that. And it's, as you see, it's almost over. I gave this to my lovely mom, and she went through it. She loves her strong fragrances, and she went through it very, very quickly. I had to really snatch this back from her, because I said, please, let me just have a little moment with this fragrance, also because talking about genderless, JJ, talking about great compositions, talking about a time and place where commercial aspects had almost nothing to do with the fragrance creation. I believe this fragrance is just keeps you looking towards the future with more positive eyes. This type of fragrances just makes you just elevate your lifestyle. They put you in a place where you feel thankful for being part of a journey, where you can come across, smells like this. So, great one.
That's a treasure as well. Hold on a second. I have my EDT I want to grab. Give me one moment.
Sure. While our lovely JJ goes for his 1000, bear in mind the support for his channel. Is Buy Me a Coffee link down there in the bottom of the page. JJ is a treasure, gentlemen and ladies. Yeah.
So this is the EDT version, which could be considered even more of a unisex wear. And a fun fact about a Me, or 1000 from Jean-Claude, is that it was one of the first fragrances that was marketed where they boasted an osmanthus note. And I'll be doing a review of this during my osmanthus week, which I'll be doing in April. And here is the EDT. And look at that
What a
golden
beautiful,
color. Yeah.
beautiful.
Get these fingerprint. I hate the fingerprints. They clean the fingerprints so you get that real shine. Here we go.
What a glorious 1972 release, if I'm not mistaken.
Indeed, indeed.
And
this is
just
I love this one. I love Joy too. Joy is far more in the feminine direction for my chemistry, though I don't think that it's forbidden for a man to wear it. But this is the one that stole my heart. 1000. And Jean Patou is, oh my God. I have. Do you know about all of the earlier scents from Ma Collection? And in the 80s, They were all relaunched. And I'll show it. I'll pick that up. I have they're all little samples of all of the Jean Patous from the 20s through the 60s. Give me 1 second. I'll show.
Yeah, well, I would like I jump at two right. Those fragrances are far discontinued, and if you can get your hands in a sample or just whatever you can get is worth. Obviously, not overpaying, because they can get quite expensive. Yes, Yoshi.
Now, if money were no object, which it is, contrary to what some people might believe, it's just I'm reckless with money. But if money were no object, I would be seeking out a number of these in full bottles. But I can accept this wonderful collection of samples. So this is the box here. I'll blow it up. I wanted to do a video on this in the future, but this is the Jean Patou Ma Collection Parfums de Nicolai. Fragrances from 1925 to 1964. And it opens up. This is the sleeve. And here. And then we open it up like this. And then you have all the descriptions of all of them. There's this little padding right here. And then watch this. Actually, I'll remove that banner. But before I do, folks, if you could buy me a coffee, 1, 2, 3, 4 or more. Buy 10 coffees and you get 4 and a mystery grab of doubles in my collection, plus a bunch of samples, US only. And I'm going to remove. I'm going to remove that banner so we can see this a little bit better. So, and there they are.
Wow.
So and talk about booklets. You have a little booklet. We'll show you that in a little bit. And there's all of them. And they're all like, I think it's like 5 milliliters each.
Yes. Wow, that look absolutely pretty.
Yeah, this is very special. They're still available. I mean, if you just got to find one for a good price. I think you could probably get it for $130 to $150, which is still like way more expensive than it used to be sold. But like, here's a little bottle of Colony, one of the first fragrances to use a pineapple accord.
Nice, very nice.
Wonderful stuff. Show just a couple of others. Lutens. And I'll show some other favorites here. Oh, this one's lovely too. Vacances. It's Vacances. And let's see. And in Normandy. So all these releases from 1925 through 1964, and then for the box, here's the brochure. It has a preface in it.
Almost like the old CDs when they used to describe, what
the
you're
liner
about
notes.
to hear. Beautiful.
This is like sort of the liner notes for all of these samples.
Great.
And they go through the whole history. So yeah, Jean Patou is one of my favorite houses, but very expensive to collect these in their vintages. So this will do, and it's wonderful. This is a wonderful a wonderful thing to have. And I do want to do a video of my impressions of all of these. I'm already familiar with all of them, but to just kind of give my feedback on all of them. So yeah,
talking Jean Patou, JJ, we cannot forgive ourselves if we don't bring up Jean Patou Puram.
Oh yeah, you're ahead of me in that one, my friend. I don't have a bottle of Jean Patou Puram.
Well, this is beautiful. Like as I said before, fragrance creation sometimes have that particular aspect about them that are elevated towards artworks, not just a cosmetic. And we also have this beautiful pamphlet on how to use the fragrance. This you don't see this anymore. Like the instructions, how to use the fragrance, and of course the bottle itself, which it has to be decanted, I believe, because in the splashing form, you tend to waste too much of it. So you definitely need to decant this before using. That happens with the Ebene also.
Another thing you can do is you can use sort of like you can use like a dropper as well. If I don't have any atomizers left, if I don't have anything to decant with, I'll just use a dropper and I'll just put a little bit of in like in the bulb of the dropper and just apply that way. A word of advice to anyone: it's actually not advisable to just put your hand on the orifice of a splash, because if you don't plan to use that fragrance rather quickly, the oils and the debris from your skin can affect the fragrance. So unless you're going to be going through that splash rather quickly, it's best to decant or to just use like a dropper or something and put it on your skin that way. Yeah.
Wonderful advice. Didn't know that, so I'll be definitely decanting.
Oh, I love Eau de Patou. Let me grab a couple more of the Patous that I have. I'll be right back if you don't mind entertaining the audience.
Thank you. Well, so far we've been amazed, as always, by JJ's collection. He's got the vintages that are treasured by many. And very lucky today to have a conversation with him about his wonderful vintage fragrances, especially the knowledge about them, which is key to discussing fragrances, obviously.
Okay, and Eau de Patou is right here. And this very brutalist, modernist kind of bottle. One of my favorite bottles. This is Eau de Patou. This is an eau fraîche. Floral, citrus aromatic, wonderful, wonderful stuff. And it is a cheap source of oak moss. There's a lot of oak moss in the dry down for those who are aficionados of the hallowed Auvergne Prunastri. And then we also have, and I see that this was mentioned as well, Nick S. mentioned it, Ma Liberté. And Ma Liberté is a beautiful, aromatic lavender, some heliotrope, some ionones, very much unisex for today's audience. God, when I think of fragrances like this, all of those 8 first impressions, they can't beat this. This is also beautiful stuff. I have the Eau de Toilette as well. This is the Eau de Parfum, Ma Liberté. This was released in 1987.
1987, very special date.
It's a very special year for you, right?
Yeah, it is my birth. It's my birth year. So it's whatever is 1987, regardless of what it is. I have a special connection to it, obviously. And wow, I just feel very lucky for tonight, and I have to bid my adieu, my good friend. Work is just overwhelming at this time of the year. I just would like to, once again, I just feel very privileged to have appeared a few minutes on your lovely stream today, impromptu stream. But this is an impromptu, just like Schubert did his impromptus, quality and astonishing just detail about fragrances and life talk in general. So I thank you very much again, dear friend, and I wish you all the best. Keep hopeful about things to come, because you have a lot to offer, and we are just eager for whatever you make with your lovely channel, JJ. So thank you very much, and I'll see you on if I'm lucky in another stage anytime soon. All right?
Yes, I hope you can join me again soon. It's been so great. It's been a delight. I'll talk to you very soon, Danilo. Take care.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, that was very nice. He's a very, very good man, and I'm happy to have met him. Yeah. Right. No, I noticed that, some of them. Yes, it's frag prawn. Yeah. It actually is quite similar. I actually think it's an improvement on it, if I may say so myself. There's nothing that would relay feminine specifically on Ma Liberté. It's for everyone. And if only I could just scrub everything off, and then I could just spray this as a palette cleanser for everything else, as a means of ridding myself of all of these modern aroma chems. I know this is just typical. Like, just something about this Violet Volynka is really getting on my nerves. There's just something that's nagging on my skin about it, and I never thought I'd say that about an Hermes or Hermescence, but it is annoying me something fierce. I didn't expect that. I didn't see that coming. I really didn't. I don't think any Hermescence has elicited this negative a response from me in its dry down. Usually the dry downs are quite well behaved, but not this one, not on my skin. Hey, yes, it was great to have him earlier. I do agree. I do agree. Exquisite taste, and really down to earth about it, which is great. Yes, I hope he can join me sometime soon. The ultimate hype man. Well, he did have some great selections. That Hermescence has been getting some good hype. Go figure, huh? It figures the one that's getting a lot of good hype. It just figures, yeah. It's almost like anything that I'm disappointed with ends up getting to become very popular. There is just so much suederol in it, and I have a tough time with suederol when it's really highly dosed. It just won't go away. It's like overpowering everything else that I sampled. All 8 things that I sampled are overpowered. And it's an Hermescence. Who would have thought like an Hermescence would overpower anything else? And it's not overpowering in a good way. Like, it's really bothering me. I know. I'm beside myself. I don't even know what to say. I have I'm just trying to find the right words for that. Like, I have a lot to live up for with that kind of comparison. All right. So back to Buy Me a Coffee. I know some folks don't believe in asking for money to help support content, but I'll explain it to you this way, and it probably won't happen as frequently as my channel continues to grow. But time is money, and I do want to work on further improvements. I have improved my live stream platform. I do have a camera on its way. I do plan to make other improvements and more giveaway opportunities. So if you could donate one coffee is $5. So, if you buy two, $10, three, $15. If you buy 10 coffees, which is the total of $50, you will be the fifth recipient of the mystery grab bag, where I will send to you 4 doubles of fragrances that are in my collection. Once again, that's a mystery grab bag, so nobody has been disappointed yet. So I will send those out to you along with a generous helping of fragrance samples. So if you send 10 coffees to buymeacoffee.com/Joseph, COLBP, then you can receive one of these mystery grab bags. I can definitely discern the tutelage of Jean-Claude Ellena in Christina Gel's work, and there are some of her work I really think is quite lovely. I love Galab Domez. I love Cedro Sambac. I'm trying to think of a few others of hers off the top of my head that I do appreciate. There are a few that I appreciate, but I do think that she's hit or miss as a perfumer. Sometimes there is some sort of something unbalanced in her work that doesn't that doesn't make me feel very happy about it. It would just something jarring at times. I'm trying to think of some examples. I suppose what I could do is I could just pick apart all of her releases. I could go to Fragrantica right now, look her up, and hash apart some of the ones that I think are good and ones that I don't think are that great. All right, let's see. All right. Christine, where are you? Oh, here we go. She is a pretty lady, though. But she's not just looks, she's got a good brain, too. Haven't tried anything of hers from Atkinson's. I was curious about Archive 69 that she did for Étalé d'Orange. She did Fendi Teorema in the 90s, late 90s, but I've never actually experienced that one. And here's all of her work for Hermes. H24, H24. A little lackluster for me, but I think it's a commendable effort for a mainstream release from a designer house. I do love Cedro Sambac, one of my favorite jasmines. And Persolaise recently did a profile on the newest of the Jardin series, Un Jardin à Citer, which has a pistachio note, and he wasn't exactly giving that a glowing review, but I still do want to try that myself. Pardon. She did a lot for Joe Malone. She did the Wood Sage and Sea Salt, which I think is I don't like that one. Not a fan of that one. And moving right along. Oh, I do love her work for Mauboussin. Histoire d'eau. Histoire d'eau is gorgeous. It's very autumnal. Memoire d'Homme, she did for Nina Ricci. A great licorice, melancholy kind of scent. I've been curious about her Une Nuit Magnétique from Different Company, because it's supposed to have a blueberry note. And I haven't discovered a fragrance with blueberry that I appreciate. But yeah, some of the work that she's done for Hermes has kind of fallen flat. Like the Un Basil Poudre Rhubarbe Écolart. Citron Noir was decent, not really all that exciting. She did that Cabriole, which is marketed to children, which is a water-based fragrance. So the original Theorema smells like fresh ivy. Are you serious? I love the idea of an ivy accord. All right. Hi there. Oh, wonderful. We've chatted recently. Yeah, I kind of feel that way with a lot of things. Like, you know, of course, Vanille Havane by Les Indomadables is like the most popular one because it is a very sweet vanillic tobacco that's really popular, and I'm really tired of that trope. Could do without it, and I could also, just like I could do without suede or raw leather. I can't vibe with Tuscan leather. I can't vibe with these like modern leathers. They make me feel like they give me a headache. They just don't do it for me. They make me feel ill. They do. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. If anybody else is willing, why don't you be a champ? You get listed on a Hall of Fame at the end of this season. When I do my finale, I'm going to mention everybody who has donated. And I will tell you what that means, too, as well, because I have things up my sleeve for people who are benefactors for the channel. I'm not just going to say, oh, thanks for the money, and then that's it. There's recognition. So, just putting that out there. And does anybody else have any other questions, queries, concerns, comments, stories? It was great talking to Danilo. I'm glad that he could make a last-minute visit with us. That was a wonderful thing. Oh, thank you very much, Tripler, for your contribution. Pomelato. Ah, yes, Pomelato. I'll get the Pomelato bottle. That'll be one of the last bottles that I grab. You gotta love a good leathery fougere. Yeah, this is it's very scarce. Very scarce. I do think Anouge of Enchanté Perfumes. The link is in the description of the live stream. It's actually in the link of all of my videos. Visit Enchanté Perfumes. I don't think he has any more of these bottles, but he has a great stock, and he can help you find what you want. What did I think of? What did I think of Nightclubbing? I can do sort of a recap of the samples one more time. So at the beginning of this stream, I actually did robotic with earbuds. Sorry for the sound issues. Obviously, this is an ongoing issue, which I will be rectifying. So, as I was saying, has this improved? The remedy? Just let me know. So earlier, I did the 8 first impressions. The winner actually was Belle from Eris Parfums. Dead last, and this is a huge surprise to me because I didn't think this was going to happen, is actually Hermes Violette Volynka. Who would have thought? Nightclubbing would be next to last, as I found the opening to be quite compelling, but the dry down to be a somewhat generic Tonka vanillic Oris. Pleasant, but pleasant isn't enough to get my motor running. And it's highway robbery. How much is charged? Being the price is just outrageous. So yeah, Eau de Lierre. Eau de Lierre is one that I have not tried that yet. The only concern that I have is that people say that it is just so fleeting, and not that I'm like a huge stickler on performance, but when you have that many people talking about how fleeting it is, it gets me a little worried. But I could just sample it and see how it is. Actually, another fragrance that has a Hedera Ivy Accord that I reviewed recently is Rock River Melody by Regime de Fleur. So you should check that out and sample it if you can. The time is now 9:02. Oh, well, fleeting is not a good thing for that brand, for that price either. Once again, fleeting is not necessarily like the worst thing, but it has to be really mind-blowing of an experience if it's fleeting. And I doubt that Reptile is mind-blowing. Yeah, that's my thoughts so far. Yeah, especially with this nightclubbing. And I haven't tried Reptile, but I imagine it's the same. All right, so I think it's time for me to sign off while the going is good. And I thank you all for joining me on this impromptu First Impressions live stream. Tune in next Tuesday for Effluvium at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will have Super Daycup and Jane Daly of Eau de Jane, Daily Beauty on Instagram, and Rachel will be my cohort and my co-host for next Tuesday. So until then, toodaloo, take care. Bye-bye now.